Do you have what it takes to write and market a book? Well, after listening to today's guest, you just might. Welcome to another episode of Content Creators Unite, the show where we discuss all things content creation. So if you want to learn how to grow your business using your blog, newsletters, books, and more, hey, you're in the right place. My name is John Clements. I'm your host for today, and our guest for today's episode is Kelly Schuknecht. So Kelly is a marketing strategist, an author, coach, and a podcast host of Beyond the Bestsellers. Be sure to check that out as soon as you're done listening to this episode. She specializes in guiding authors to write, publish, and market their books as tools to expand their impact in business. She's passionate about empowering creatives to amplify their influence and turn their expertise into profitable platforms. So, Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, John. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to have this conversation with you. You and I have so much in common on the just writing and passion about books side. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, let's just get into it then. So, I know that you did not start out life as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. You actually used to be a marketing director. So, let's talk to us just for a minute about how you made that shift from a traditional job into maybe more of the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. Never really was anything I thought about doing. And before my marketing job, I actually ran a publishing company. So I was the executive vice president of a publishing company for 10 years, left that and kind of accidentally found my next job, which was the marketing director job. I was there for 7 years. And I say accidentally because I was at an event and met an entrepreneur who, just through casual conversations, I was talking about leaving my publishing job. He was in the process of writing his book. And so he had asked me, "Hey, can you help me get this book published?" And I was like, sure, like that's what I've been doing. Right. So I knew the industry well and was able to help him with kind of all those last pieces of, you've written the book, now what? Right. So getting the editing, getting the book cover designed, all of those little pieces, and then helping him just publish it really simply to Amazon. Um, and then from there that turned into, well, can you help my marketing team? Can you help, and so it very accidentally led to a job where I built a department. So I was the first marketing employee in the company. And then when I left, which was just the end of 2024, I had a team of about 7 people. And so we grew over a 7 year period of time. We grew from about the company from about 4 million to 12 million. And the kind of the next step for me was the company that we had grown to that point had gotten acquired a couple of years ago, and it was a 5 year acquisition kind of transition. So a couple of years ago, I kind of knew like my job was probably coming to an end, and I started thinking about what might be next for me. And it's really easy to dream about the next step and dream about a business when you're not actually doing it. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about that business, thinking about the services I would offer. I created the website. I mean, I was doing these things with very little pressure, right? Just kind of like in my spare time, weekends, I would kind of just work on things, but without really any plan of launching until it happened, right? And I didn't know when that was going to be. But part of that acquisition was I was laid off, and that was not a surprise. Obviously, for a couple of years, I had been thinking about what was next because of that. But then all of a sudden, it became real, and luckily, I'd had a lot of kind of foundational things in place, and was able to say, "Okay, it's time to make a decision." Right? It's time to decide if I'm going to apply for jobs or if I'm going to start this business. And I knew if I applied for jobs and got a job, I would not be able to dedicate the time to starting the business, and that would be something that later I would look back on and regret. So I went all in on starting my business, deciding on how exactly I was going to go to market, and and I did it. And so, I'm really only a few months in, but it has felt very natural because of taking all of that experience that I had from the publishing side of things to the business side of things, and deciding how to take my skills and experience and turn that into service offerings that I could build a business around. And I think because of my natural just kind of skills and the career capital that I had developed over that time, it has grown pretty quickly, and I'm really fortunate for that.
Oh, that's excellent. So what is it? So it seemed like you were, in a sense, driven, like you really made this decision, like I'm going to start my own business. What is it about that that excites you, or that made you decide that? Was it the aspect of freedom, or was it the aspect of just trying something new? Like, how did that land for you?
It's so hard to answer that question because at the time, I think really, like I said, I started, it was like I had to decide a path, right? I had to choose a path. And I started applying for jobs. And I told my husband at the time, I was like, I'm going to apply for jobs as my backup, and then I'm going to work on my business outside of that. Well, anyone applying for jobs knows that if you're seriously trying to find a job, it takes a lot of time to fill out those applications, to do the research, so I was finding that within those first few days, I was just so busy with that part of it, and I just wanted to get it over with so I could start on the business side of it.
Mm.
And then after about really like 2 days, I went, I think that's a sign. Like I don't want to go find another job. Like I don't want to just go find somebody else to work for. I've always had a lot of freedom, so it wasn't really about creating a lifestyle that is flexible or anything like that, because I've worked remotely for 18 years. So I've really experienced a lot of flexibility just in my life in general. But I will say, the one difference I saw right away within the first couple of weeks was, even though I had flexibility around my schedule, I could set my own hours basically within business hours, when I was an employee. Um, I saw that, like, within the first couple weeks, I really felt the freedom of just really being able to do that without the guilt. And I don't know if anyone, like, could understand that without experiencing it, but it's like, even though I had flexibility as an employee working remotely, once I really could build my schedule around my life and what made sense for me, like if I have an appointment, or, if I just want to fit in work on a Saturday, like I can do that, but I don't feel guilty. Um, I just don't feel guilty anymore. And it's been like really freeing in that way. So I didn't do it because I wanted that, but I have sensed that just as, a side effect of doing my own thing. I think the other thing for me was that my career has been being, I keep saying this, but being the person behind the person. My whole career, I worked directly for a CEO. So even though I felt like I had great ideas, and I, had a great leadership style, I brought, things to the table. I, was very instrumental in the growth that both companies experienced. I still didn't have the final say, and that's okay. But I also realized that just being able to have the final say has empowered me to just, I don't know, do things my way, in a way that I was never able to do before. Like I would bring the idea, but then it would be like, well, but we'll change it this way, or well, but and now I get to say, you know what, this is how I want to do it, and this is how I'm going to do it. And that feeling is amazing.
Yeah, I'm actually tracking with you the whole time because I spent 15 years in the corporate world before COVID actually forced
Mm.
me out.
Okay.
Like I was in the same, I made that same decision that you did. Like, you know what? I don't want to get another job. I want to do what I want to do on my time. And like you said, the first time I was able to do something because I wanted to do it in a certain way, because gosh darn it, I know what I'm doing. That was so cool. So I
Yeah.
totally get you.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
All right. So I mean, I could talk about this all day, but let's actually get to something that, will provide some value, value to our listeners. One of the services you provide in your business is you help professionals to write and market their books to basically promote themselves, promote their brand and their business. So, what is it exactly that makes a book such a good marketing tool?
Oh man. So yeah, so I mentioned that I ran a publishing company, but it was all different genres, all different, it was not specific to anything, any type of book. Um, Ever since then, I've always worked I call it a not a side hustle, but a side hobby because I never made made any money doing it, but I always kind of worked on the side doing this little kind of fun stuff with authors, and helping authors learn how to promote their books. And I've always been very focused on social media because for authors of any genre, social media can open up a lot of doors for marketing. But, when I decided to start my business, I decided to focus on nonfiction books, nonfiction authors, kind of professional type books. And the reason being because of my corporate business world background, I saw firsthand how valuable a book can be in building a thought leadership platform for professionals. So I decided I wanted to really focus on that and kind of bring my two worlds together. So I, have this network of professionals who know that they need to get out there and speak and be more, prevalent on social media, and they know that having that book, it helps establish their authority in their field. And so was able to kind of like pull all those things together and create services around helping professionals bring their book to life. So a lot of times it's like they have a message, they go out and speak, or they go on podcasts. They know what the message is that they're trying to say, but sometimes they struggle with, but I couldn't write a book. Like, what would I write about? How do I approach this? Right. So I help them get all of that out of their head and start the process of writing that book. And then it is just a great tool for it's establishes their kind of expertise in their field, but then also it's a great thing that they can hand out at events or just a really like easy offer to people like, oh, you want to, get to know me more, get to know more about what we do. Here's a book. You can send an ebook copy really uh well for free, right? But also you can send a hard copy very inexpensively also. So there's just so many ways that they can use the book, but it also is just a kind of support for their platform as a thought leader in their industry.
Okay, so I want to drill down on one thing you said because I am curious about this. So you said you help people kind of get ideas on paper because that was my question. Is let's say I'm a business professional and I have no idea what expertise I might have that might make for a profitable book. Like, how do you? What are some tips or tricks that you like just help people understand? This is how to think about how what you know might be worth something to someone else.
I'm always amazed when people tell me like, I don't even know what I'd write about. I'm like, yes, you do. You do know this, right? Like, I mean, they don't, but like they have to just have some prompts to get it out of their head. But every one of us, whatever we become specialized in, we have those things that like I like to think of it, before I started my business, long before all of that, like back really when I was in publishing, I realized people every time I would be with people in a social setting, they would talk to me about writing a book. They would talk, "Oh, I wanna write a book. How do I do that?" Or, the topic was always interesting to people, so they would always just bring it up. I wasn't talking about what I did, but they would want to get that information from me. And over time, I started to realize, like, oh, like, my topic and I have not written this book yet, John, but I should. But my topic could very simply be how to write a book, right? Like, that's just, like, the thing that people are interested in what I'm doing that they're asking me questions about, right? So anyone, whatever their industry is, they have those things that people are asking them about. Like when you say what you do, whatever it is, people are in they latch on to certain pieces of it that they find interesting, but they ask questions, right? Or as a service provider, maybe you think of it like when I'm meeting with a client, what are the questions that that client is always asking me, right? And you take that and then you can turn that into the topic of your book. All of us, any professional has those types of experiences. We just have to start being kind of aware of those questions that are being asked and those things that people are kind of tuning into because they're interested. And then start turning that into the topic, the chapters, and outlining kind of how you would approach getting that information out of your head into a format that you can actually hand to them.
Yeah, and I think, like, one thing you said, especially I connect with, is what are my clients or customers or friends asking about? Or, what are their
Mhm.
pain points? And so, I found it extremely helpful to just ask my clients straight up, "Hey, why did you hire me? What problem did I solve of yours?" Then they'll tell you. It's amazing. If you ask people, they will tell you. So,
Yeah.
like, that's, the information is out there. But then the follow-up that I had to that is because I'm thinking, along the lines of a typical person who's maybe trying something new and there's fear involved. And they say, "Okay, well, yeah, I wanna write a book about how to write a book, but there's thousands of books on writing out there. Mine's just gonna get lost in the noise. I have nothing new to say." Like, well, how would you respond to someone who might say something like that?
I totally get it, and I have felt that way. I mean, I threw out the idea of, like, I could write a book on how to write a book, right? But I wouldn't title it that because that's going to just be boring and it's gonna blend into everything, right? So what's my special angle that I can bring to that title or to the approach of writing a book? I have always felt like that. I mean, when I started my company, it was like, how many marketing agencies are out there and providing the kind of services that I'm providing? Like there are millions of them, right? Like why would anyone come to me? But it's because of this special sauce that I bring to what I'm doing. So yes, there are other people out there who maybe have written on the same topic, but they're not you, and you have your own unique style, perspective, you know, the the thing that you're bringing to it that makes it different. Why are you getting clients? Why are they coming to you? It's about, I've learned this through starting my business that they're buying you. Like when you're putting yourself out there, they are investing in you, not just the service you're providing. So, thinking of it like what is that special ingredient that I'm bringing to this and making it unique and stand out in that way.
Yeah, I think that's right on. And actually, this kind of does tie in not only to writing a book, but I think it also probably ties into marketing the book. So you mentioned on your website, I was reading some of your blogs, which are very well done, by the way, and that marketing a book is arguably harder than writing the book, which is hard in and of itself. So let's say I'm that new author who I'm working with you, and I've got my book with a special sauce, which is really just me. And then I say, okay, that's great, Kelly. Now, like, how do I market this thing? I don't even know. Like, where do I even start?
So I think it absolutely depends on your book, right? Like where's your audience for this book? Uh so and I assume in this case we're talking about nonfiction authors, but I will say also have a platform on TikTok and I teach authors on TikTok how to promote their books. That I think of more specifically for fiction authors, because there's a lot of people consuming content on TikTok and they're looking for books. There's a big book talk world out there, and you're going to be more likely to find the right readers on TikTok if your book is fiction. But for a nonfiction book, it's going to be different, right? And so a lot of my blog posts, I talk about different ways to promote different types of books. Even though I did mention as I started my business, I'm getting more specific to those professional nonfiction type books. But anyone who has a professional book, uh, if they're doing speaking engagements, they should be mentioning their book in their speaking engagements. They should be having copies with them when they're going to events. They should get on podcasts. The podcasts aren't necessarily going to, you're not going to sell 100 copies every podcast episode that you do, but the podcast can help build awareness for your book and also help you create clips from the either videos or audio clips that you can then use in your marketing. The other thing, I'm a big fan of social media. So whatever that platform looks like for you, anyone who is, you should be using social media to promote your book. Um, Again, if it's not nonfiction professional books, LinkedIn would probably be the most likely platform to find your audience, right? But it's not about just constantly talking about your book or constantly putting out images of your book. I always like in my videos on TikTok, I'll talk about like don't constantly beat people over the head with your book. That's not how you want to come off. But it's having that as a tool that you're constantly able to mention and feature in your content, but without being overly annoying. I'll just
Yeah.
say. Uh, but again, it depends on your topic also. I know I work with a lot of women who their book, although it's nonfiction, is really appropriate on Instagram, right? Like they're going to find their audience on Instagram and doing content that speaks directly to users of that specific platform. So it's understanding your audience, reaching them where they are, and using kind of a variety of tactics to build awareness about your book.
Yeah. So I want to dig into that the last thing you said about a variety of tactics because so again, reading your blog, I noticed that we actually share a birthday. So which is pretty cool. You're my first podcast guest to be born on July 12th along with me. So congrats. Uh so you had a post that you posted on your birthday a couple years ago about 10 ways to promote your book on your birthday, which I thought was just incredibly creative. I've never heard anything like that before. So like just on that vein, like what are some of the more creative ways you've discovered or helped people to promote their book?
Well, that's a fun question. Yeah, so that post when I was writing a couple of years ago on my blog, I will say that was when it was the side hobby. The side hobby rather than the side hustle, right? So I wasn't doing it to make any money, but so I got to have a lot of fun in the creativity around um the content that I was putting out there. One of the posts I also did around that time, maybe a little bit before that one, but was 19 ways to promote your book on TikTok. And that one became one of my most popular blog posts because people are just interested in that in general. Um, but I think, so I had to pull up that post so I could look at some of the ideas I had in there since you mentioned it was a couple years ago. So I have another one that I did more recently that is like, I think it's 101 ways to promote your book. And I don't know if you remember, oh gosh, I can't remember his name now. I want to say it was also John, but there was an author years ago when I was in the publishing industry who had a book on something like that, like 1001 ways to market your book. And I remember, I mean, some of them are very minimal and, kind of almost silly or, whatever. But it's like, I think the idea with all of those types of posts or, just ideas of ways to promote your book are just giving you like constant ways of doing it where you're not always thinking about how to get that book out there. So, like one of the things we used to do was like press releases. Well, I don't know how many people use press releases anymore to promote their book, but it might work to your local newspaper, right? Like sending it to your local newspaper, whatever. So those are just some like easy ways to just kind of get it out there in a fun way. And I like the variety of, you know, this post I mentioned doing like a birthday themed contest, right? Like doing a giveaway for your book, but it's like using a special event, whether it's your birthday or like maybe you have a book that is, I don't know, makes sense to promote around Christmas or around, some other type of holiday or whatever, but using that holiday and then creating content that you're doing a giveaway, but you're kind of using your birthday or that event or whatever to like talk about the book, right? Like, so there's just like different ways of like working it into your content and making it fun and engaging where people are wanting to, you know, they're wanting to engage because it's just kind of fun or they want to, be a part of your birthday celebration or whatever it is. So I think it's just like always thinking of new creative ways to get your book out there, but without just, like I said, um, not just constantly beating people over the head with your book, but like making it fun, like so that people are wanting to engage. And also just like not like every single day, but like thinking of ways to kind of work it into your content over time.
Yeah, yeah, I like the idea, and that's really why I brought it up was just to talk about like it's okay to be creative. It's okay. It's great to be able to work fun into it. And like from the beginning of our conversation, if you're in a position like you or I are, where it's like there is no boss, like we're the boss. So if you have an idea and it's creative and fun and new, why not try it? Like
Mhm.
I never would have thought about promoting a book on my birthday if I hadn't read your blog post, but now I'm like, oh, now I know that
How could I
idea,
work that out? Yeah.
right? Maybe it's not that, maybe it's Father's Day or Christmas or whatever, but just to get thinking in that creative realm is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I have one author I'm working with now who her book it's nonfiction, but it's like her it's like essays, kind of like her thoughts that she's trying to provoke kind of debate around certain issues, right? And I've been really impressed with her. She has taken content from her book and turned it into audio clips that she does in TikTok store, or excuse me, not TikTok, Instagram stories. And she has seen a lot of great results from that engagement, and also people downloading her book on Spotify. And it's a thing that honestly, I wouldn't have thought about doing it that way, but that was her own idea. And it just so it's like pieces of her book. She doesn't have her face on the book, her actual name on the book, because she wants it to be pen name, not, so they're not connecting with a person, they're connecting with the message of the book. And that has been it's been really interesting to see that. So I think that the biggest thing for any author, any genre, is to always think of, to be creative and have fun with it. And, you know, think of ways to reach your target audience. But I think when you're going in it with this, like, I need to sell 1 million copies, like I'm gonna retire on this book or whatever. Like there's so much pressure to sell, sell, sell. But when you try to make it more creative, fun, and engaging, then it kind of happens more naturally and more slowly, but you have more fun with it, and I think that's really important.
Nice. Yeah. Well, so that's great. I actually want to take the conversation just a bit of a different direction because you did mention fun, and I do actually want to get to know you better as a person. So I'm going to assume that you have good boundaries in place. You're not working 24 hours a day. We'll just make that assumption. So when you're not working, what do you like to do for fun?
So, I would say I am not good at that because I do tend to work more than I should. But this month, my husband and I, well, for one, we did dry January, which forced us to find creative things to do that wasn't just the normal, like we go to the bar and like happy hour and then dinner, whatever. But so one of the things that we discovered, which is silly because we've lived where we live for 12 years now, but we just discovered the hot springs. I mean, we knew they were there, right? But we had never gone to them before. People come from all over the country to go to the hot springs that are right down the street from our house. And we never go there. And that has been the our really fun, like, break that's like relaxing, that kind of gives us that the feel of like this is now happy hour, but it's going to the hot springs and like sitting in a pool that is 106 degrees when it's 19 degrees outside. So that was our fun discovery in January.
I love it. That does sound fun. So okay, I will tell on myself. So I live in the Seattle area. I've lived there for yeah, actually about 12 years. Never been to the top of the Space Needle. Haven't done it. So
Yeah,
I
it's
gotta
like
get
that's
on
what
that.
tourists do, right? Like you don't
That's
do it when you
right.
live there, but sometimes you just gotta go out and discover the things around you that you wouldn't normally try. And I think we're gonna be weekly hot springs visitors now.
Oh, I love that. That's great. So you've also done so as we mentioned earlier, you've done a lot of things. You've been like an executive level. You've done marketing, directing. You've transitioned to be in your own business. You have a family. You've got a lot of wisdom, I know, built up. So what's like a piece of wisdom or a life lesson you've learned in your journey? It could be work related, could be life related, that can just help people to just be better, be that 1% better tomorrow than they were today.
Well, it's a good question for me because I am a big fan of like doing Miracle Morning and reading nonfiction personal development books. So this is like basically my life as I live in this place of like, how can we always strive to get better? Um, and I feel like my practice has gotten really good this year, and I've worked really hard um I mean, I do the miracle morning practice, but like also just like getting that journaling piece together. That was the one piece that I struggled with for a long time. And this year I signed up for a journaling course in January, and that's been really, really helpful for me. Learning different journaling prompts and like having kind of a library of them to choose from now, and practicing that. So for me, it's really focusing on reading nonfiction, personal development books. I want to always be reading at least one of those at a time, and then always spending that time in reflection and journaling, and working through the things that are like rolling around in our brains. Like that to me has been incredibly helpful this year.
Oh, I love that. That's a great tip. Yeah, I should probably start doing that more. So, as we start to wrap up, Kelly, it's been a great conversation. I've learned a ton. And one of my favorite things actually about this conversation is you have a marketing company. You are a marketing director. I have not heard one single word of marketing jargon out of your mouth. So that makes me like, all right, she talks like a human being. I love that. It helps me feel like I too can understand marketing. So I'm guessing I'm not the only person who's listening to this who has just now had that thought, oh my gosh, that's right. So I am sure some people are going to want to reach out to you and have more conversations with you about marketing in plain language. How can people do that?
Yeah, I would love that. So best place right now, as my business is, still new and growing, and I'm, learning how to basically handle I don't want to use marketing jargon, but handle the lead generation that comes with building a business. But the best place to connect with me is LinkedIn, really. So I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes because my name is not easy to spell, but I try to post on LinkedIn at least 4 times a week. And I practice what I preach, right? So trying to create variety in my posts, make them engaging. And if somebody wants to chat, I'm happy to, you can send me a message on LinkedIn. I'm happy to jump on a call and do that with anyone.
Awesome. Yeah, we will definitely have your information in the show notes so people can reach out to you. So again, thank you so much, Kelly, for being on. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Yeah. So to our listeners, if you enjoyed our discussion today as much as I did, I hope you did. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. I go out and find the best people I can possibly find. I pick their brains, I get all their secrets, and I give them to you. So be sure to subscribe, like, do all the things. And with that, I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time on the Content Creators Unite podcast.